public hearing. Oh, no, sorry.
All right. Oh, I thought I had a bad.
We're hearing from the dog.
My sister's dog. Okay. We're going to begin tonight with a public hearing to hear opinions about the rezoning of Larry Whitcomb's property from residential to industrial on East Lafayette. So if you have an opinion about that.
I heard from a resident.
Wait, excuse me.
Yes, I'm sorry. Excuse me, or Mr. Chair.
Yes. During this portion, commission members are prohibited from making comment, but you'll get a chance to make your comment.
But I heard from a resident, and she asked what I just expressed. I could tell her address.
Do you have something to read from her?
No, she just bit my ear.
But you could make your comments during.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not telling you can't read
Okay.
that. I'm just saying procedurally, we don't make our comments until. Okay, so the public is welcome to make comments on this rezoning proposal. So if you have a comment you'd like to make, go ahead.
Yes, I thought it was commercial, not industrial.
It's light industrial, right?
I
Yes?
thought it was commercial.
No, your rezoning request?
Yeah.
No, it's from residential to light industrial.
Oh, like industrial.
You going for commercial?
I thought it was commercial.
There wasn't a designation when I filled out the paperwork for like light manufacturing. So the nearest thing was light industrial. There just wasn't that many designations. When I looked at the zoning map of the village, I didn't see anything other than industrial that would fit, because it wouldn't fit with commercial, I don't think, as far as people coming in and going and buying and selling. So that was just the nearest designation that I was able to find.
Okay, any other comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm Mike Carpenter. I live at 332 East St. Clair. I back up to the Whitcomb property. I guess first of all, I'm really surprised that that property, as long as it's been operating and as the type of business that it is actually zoned residential. And I don't know how that kind of property would be allowed to operate for that amount of time as a residential property. That being said, the type of business that Whitcomb runs there, we've never had a problem with. They've always, for the most part, kept the place neat, never been too loud or anything like that. My main concern is that if you rezone that to light industrial, who else moves in there? As soon as another business moves in, I have no control over who's in my backyard and the level of noise that I already have. Since we've moved in 94, that street has already gotten extremely busy and a lot noisier than it ever was when we moved in. I really don't want that noise behind me too. So I would be strongly against rezoning that property to beyond what it already is. I still don't know how it has been allowed to operate with the current zoning that it is, but I really don't want another type of business back there.
Okay. Hold on. All right, any other comments, from the public?
Can I ask them a question about what they're?
Ask who?
I'm assuming these guys are gentlemen.
Sure, go
that are
ahead.
asking to rezone, correct? Can I ask why we're looking to rezone at this point, considering since we've been here and prior, you've been running the business the same way? So what are you changing that you need something different to turn it to an industrial location instead of strictly whatever it's been since longer than we've been here?
Yes, good question. Yeah, it's not really, I'm not going to be changing anything I'm going to be doing other than issues of bringing it up to the conformity of what it's been being used for starters. Secondly, I'm looking down the road to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, so we may be looking at letting the property go. Thirdly was the issue if, which I've been in some conversations about insurance. If it ever, God forbid it was ever burned down or something, that we'd have issues having it rebuilt under the current zoning, would have to be rezoned anyway. So those are the main things that we have.
Okay, then my comment on that would be, again, what's the next step, what's coming in. They're fine, they've been there, we're not gonna argue with them, we're not gonna say, you're residential, you can't be there, shut down. I don't want any of that. But what's the next thing in 5 years, 6 years, whatever, when he does sell, and it's now an industrial spot, who's to stop anybody from coming in and building what they want? We're giving them carte blanche to do whatever right behind my house in an area that is, besides the car wash on the corner, it is residential. I mean, that's what it's zoned, that's what it's meant to be. This is a village, this isn't I mean, you're gonna turn a back street into a downtown thoroughfare. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't want the noise and the difficulty selling my property because there's some new whatever back there. Again, who knows what it would be. So that's my point. And I know some of our other neighbors have the same thing. I don't know, they're not here. I think Zach has some information from you.
All right, well, we'll try and address some of your concerns in a couple minutes, as soon as we get out of this portion. Any other public comments? I think we've run out of people at this point. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the regular portion of our meeting, and the public hearing portion of tonight's program. Let's begin the regular meeting with roll call.
Stegner,
Here.
Fowler,
Yes.
Grandstaff,
Yes.
Foltz, Stevens, Webb,
Here.
Kier,
Here.
Hall,
Here.
Okay, now we move on.
Smiles.
is here.
Smiles,
Here.
So now we move on to approval of tonight's agenda. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one's opposed. Approval of the meetings of the April 7th minutes.
Make a motion that we approve April 7th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Public forum, this portion of the meeting, you can say whatever you want, and Mr. Fowler can say
Well,
something.
yeah, first of all, on the 28th of April, there was a meeting at the Board of Commissioners in Macomb County. And Chester's property finally got approved for the annexation into the village of Romeo. This was the second time that he actually had to take it in front of the board. The first time it failed. A lot of the rhetoric that's going around out there is that the townships basically are kind of skeptical of the village being property grabbing, power hungry.
Mhm.
So, and especially as Don Brown said, that some of the rhetoric coming out of the village is that we're going to become a city. So if that was the case, then property taxes couldn't be collected by the townships. It would just be in one bag. So that's why they were kind of skeptical of letting us go. But they were reassured that Romeo right now currently is a village and shall stay a village. And Chester got his approval for the annexation of the property.
Yeah, Chester came to Romeo. Romeo did not go looking for property from Chester.
Correct.
Okay, I just,
Correct.
that's,
You got
I've
approved for
heard,
the annexation.
I've heard a whole bunch of Romeo was grabbing and this and that, and it is not. They came to,
They came to Romeo.
just like Ray Township, they came to Romeo.
As we are a village.
Yes,
But some of the rumors going around, and if that rumor happens, then there's no more tax collection from those townships. They are cut off. No more summer and winter taxes. So that's the advantage of us staying in the village and being a good neighbor to Bruce Township, Washington Township, Armada Township, and Ray Township, which we now border all those communities. Oh, and I was talking to a resident, she gave me a call, 308 East St. Clair Street, regarding the rezoning of the property from what it is to, right now it's currently used as multiple zoning. And she showed me the letter that went out, and the letter had it residential. That went out to that's why the carpenters are saying it's residential, but ours said it correctly, which was multiple use. So her concern is basically the same, is that, with the multiple buildings going up down on Old Shookie's property, the apartment buildings, that street is very busy. And the traffic's coming down there quite a bit, and they use their backyards for their haven, pretty much. It's just like the Carpenters just said. And her biggest thing is, if it is rezoned to light industrial, and she happened to look at the property next door where those multiple buildings are, those apartment buildings are, that property too is zoned light industrial. And her concern is, what if somebody comes in and purchases the whole thing and throws up a big industrial facility right there? And that's what I think these residents on East St. Clair Street, which are all zoned residential houses off of that alley, the north end of the alley, each one of those houses are residential, so they're not multiple. And that's their concern, is having that in the backyard looking at it. So, like I said, she talked to me quite a bit, and I ended up talking to the Carpenters too, so. Good to see you, Les. And that's it.
Okay, any other comments, concerns? Okay, at this time, I'm going to call on Mr. Steve Casson to tell us about his review of the rezoning.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a request, as you had stated, for multiple family residential and light industrial. So the property as zoned along that entire street could be developed with apartments, duplexes, depending on the accumulation of the property, based on our zoning. For reasons unknown, as was mentioned tonight, development was in there, multiple family and industrial type development was placed in there. The request before you tonight is to see if the property could be appropriately zoned for the use. I struggled with this both ways because on one hand, it's already there, the use is industrial, it makes sense. And on the other hand, there are some legitimate concerns about the future of use if it's zoned industrial. But the bottom line is, you've been living, there's been an industrial use there for years, and they're asking for it to be continued. The options are, there are other options, use variances, conditional rezonings, which have to be offered by the resident or the property owner, but they're asking for a rezoning at this time. Although I struggled, I think the benefits of it outweigh the negatives at this time, so I recommended approval.
And so the benefits are?
You have a building that you want to appropriately zone, it's already industrial. Now, if it remained residential, you could possibly get apartments there. But being a non-conforming use, if there could never be, you can't make improvements to a building like that. Okay? Non-conforming doesn't allow improvements, just upgrades to the structure itself. So you could start to see a decline of that building over the years because they're not allowed to improve or expand or anything. That's one of the issues. But on the other hand, like I said, I struggled with this. It does open up the possibility of a different use coming in there one day.
You mentioned conditional rezoning.
Mhm.
What types of things could we restrict or limit it to?
Okay. A conditional rezoning has to be requested. We can't ask for it, okay?
Okay.
A conditional rezoning has to be requested by the property owner. And in that case, what they would do is they would offer or propose a conditional zoning that only a certain use could be there. For example, only a sign company could be there. If the sign company went out of business, then that zoning would go back to multiple family.
Okay.
Other option is a use variance, which was almost the same thing, but the zoning board of appeals would grant a use just for that building to make that building a permitted use within that district until such time that the business went out of existence. Now, that's not going to help the property owner, though, in the future if he wants to sell the building with the appropriate zoning, so that's something that could safeguard you too. So there are options, but this is, like I said, this was very difficult, and I'm not certain the reasons why it was allowed to build there in the first place, other than there might not have been an ordinance back then.
Right.
And
I know
Mr.
why.
Fowler probably knows.
Yeah, I'll fill in the blanks here. All right, before, many moons ago, the village boundaries were right there at the railroad tracks or the trail. So the village did their rezoning of what they could within the boundaries. In Railroad Street down there used to be no railroad yard. They spot zones certain things. Well, after the village then moved out to Powell Road with our industrial area, those areas weren't taken care, at least that area wasn't taken care of. Where I currently live right now, we proceeded to rezone that area, which is now zoned residential. But that dotted line kind of ran crooked all the way
Okay.
across there. And that property was not taken care of, or hadn't been approached because it was in the multiple zoning, so Merriam really never touched it. Because the ideal was multiple zoning residential, they just wanted to make the gradual change.
Compatibility, yeah.
Yes. So that's why they messed with you. So.
Thanks, that helps.
Hey, I knew it.
I knew you'd have the
I had the hands up here. Yeah, I know. I read it here and I go, okay, let me give you a little
Thanks.
background.
Mr. Casson, I don't know if it's a bad question or not, but I've heard the term light industrial used a couple of times tonight. Is there a designation? Because I don't see one in our zoning ordinance that.
It's industrial, light industrial.
So industrial's industrial.
It's
There's no
industrial.
lighter version or.
In the village,
Okay.
it's industrial.
Okay.
We don't have degrees of industrial, really.
Okay.
Now, we have a couple examples in the village to where it's in a residential, like Earl Parsons' old building, which was then taken over by another body shop. So there's a situation to where it was sold and he's still able to operate a business there. I think there's a couple other examples within the area to where it didn't have to go so drastically zoned to a different, it's grandfathered in right now at that purpose for usage.
You had one I talked to the other day, the nursing home
Yes.
down there, it's being abandoned, they're still building, and they're using part of it as an office, which is not appropriately zoned either, but.
Is a conditional rezoning something the applicant would consider applying for? Light industrial limited to blah, 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 blah. You know, I don't think you probably want to do just a sign company because that's probably suffocating, but
Yeah, I would have to look into that further for sure.
yeah, but that could be done to help these folks, you know.
Right, so
You know.
there's some ridiculous business moving in there with presses and that, I don't
Yeah, you
anticipate
don't-
that. I mean,
yeah.
I would certainly be careful about who I would sold it to or sell it to regardless. And we've had some people approach us and none of them are gonna be making any noise, so, you know, we've got some balls in the air right now.
And another issue would be, I don't know if you know, but we kind of separated in business, and I'm looking to get my half of the building down the road, and financially, if he decides to retire, we can't afford to turn that place into an apartment or a multiple dwelling or what have you. And I'd hate to see blight go on, but that's probably what would happen down the road. There's just no finance and nothing there. I'd hate to see the building sit there and deteriorate.
So you guys already have sales
We've
in
had
the
some
works.
people approach us.
Yeah, we've had.
So
some
this
people-
is the thing that I'm saying, that, you know, okay, so they're saying now that these people aren't noisy, but who's the next people? And
Sure,
I can't
understand
guarantee
that.
that everybody's gonna have the integrity that these gentlemen are.
Sure.
And it worries me for my future in that home. And it could, I mean, they could sell it next year, and then that company's out the next year, and somebody buys up the apartments, and there's some stamping plant behind my house. I mean, when you open it up to industrial, it's open up to industrial.
Zach, you had mentioned that there was a similar situation where somebody was grandfathered in and it was sold. At that point, is it still grandfathered in to, right now, they're operating an industrial type business, obviously on the lighter side, it's grandfathered in, so if they do nothing, if this doesn't go through, the new people, aren't they, I mean, how does that work? Would they still be grandfathered in as well, the new owners?
I think the capacity, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, the capacity of how they operate, what goes in. I mean, let's just say a roofing company buys the building. Well, their activity isn't as strenuous as full-blown industrial plant.
Mhm.
I mean, there's trucks in and out, there's the yard in and out. You know, it's different. It's a different activity as opposed to 8 to 5 plus a second shift plus a third shift
Mhm.
of an industrial, banging garbage cans, you know, high-lows driving back and forth, picking up stuff.
Even with a roofing company, you still have the big noise backing up and all of that going on if that's what they're gonna use it for. I mean,
Too, but the activity is a little different for a construction company as opposed to a heavy industrial.
it is different,
Right.
but it's
Mr.
still, it's more
Mr. Chairman, I'd
than
like-
what we've had for the past 27 years.
Correct.
We
I mean,
have
then-
had some people lease the yard, and we've had people
I'll
come
wait.
and go quite frequently with their trailers.
Yeah,
For
I
the
mean,
most part.
I see the trucks and stuff.
Okay.
going in and out.
Yeah,
Mr.
there are more
Makes sense,
Amazon, UPS, and FedEx trucks that drive in front of my
Since the
shop
train
every
station
day
is down
that
there.
we generate in a month. So as far as the traffic that we would be generating, I wouldn't see any change there, but I do understand what you're saying, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yes.
Can we ask Mr. or can I ask Mr. Casson a couple
Absolutely,
of questions
sure,
to
yes.
clarify this? Mr. Casson, my understanding is they're non-conforming use. They can continue to operate as they have been all along, no problems for as long as they want to, correct? If someone else buys the property from them and wants to operate a business there of the same caliber, that they can continue that use, correct? Okay. But if someone else buys that property and wants to change it to one of the permitted uses, if it is zoned industrial, then they can do that with simply coming to us with a site plan.
Yes.
So they would be allowed to do automobile manufacturing, warehousing and wholesale,
No, I'm sorry.
compound.
If it's yes,
If it's yes,
without zoning,
with rezoning.
with rezoning.
With rezoning, they could do any of these things that are permitted with simply a site plan.
Yes,
Okay, all right. Conditional rezoning would allow them, if they requested it, that could move to the industrial zoning, but only as a sign company,
it
correct?
could be, or it
It
could
could
be
be
things
limited.
like only a business, industrial business that's completely enclosed within the building with no external effects, no stockpiling of equipment, supplies, that kind of thing. They could offer that too.
Right, but as it stands now, if they leave it, and if that use is not continued, whoever the next buyer is, if they don't continue that use, they lose the use within a year's time, and it goes back to multiple, okay. Am I correct in my memory that we denied an industrial zoning to the Meldrum Brothers at the corner? Right, on a vacant property. And then, Mr. Fowler, you mentioned Earl's, which is at the corner of Dickinson and Clinton?
Yes.
Yeah. He was allowed to continue because he was non-conforming, but remained doing the same type of business.
Correct.
So if he leaves, the building goes to single family.
No, he's already gone, he already resold the building to the
Right,
same
but-
type of activity.
But the same type of, right, so as long as they're doing the same type of activity, they can continue as a non-conforming use under the current zoning that they are.
Correct.
So you guys they can continue, no problems whatsoever.
Continue if they left a business of less non-conformity.
Less non-conformity, right,
Something
less,
that's not more non-conformity.
Right.
Like an office building could go in there.
right,
Or things like that, real estate, whatever.
right. I mean, I must say that my biggest concern is, are the single-family homes on 32 Mile Road? Are the single-family, I mean, that's all zone residential multiple. We know that. There's apartments right next door. There's a lot of houses there. I realize the car wash is down there. I realize that, but that's my concern is the single-family homes and the industrial, because because then you have the house there too, and, I mean, you're putting an industrial use right there between families that are living there.
Excuse me, what if it was commercial, would that make a difference if there's?
That would be worse.
It would be worse.
Would it be worse?
You have retail traffic all day. And then your use wouldn't be allowed in a commercial district anyways. So you're basically creating another non-conforming.
Yeah, we're not commercial.
Because I always assumed that we were grandfathered in as commercial, because I know they built that building, the Creamery Fort back in the teens or whatever. Been a business, fairly.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, there's actually another business on the north-south street there to the east of you too, right?
There's the stair place,
Mhm.
Wolverine on the corner of Railroad and Lafayette, and then Bill Miller has that industrial building. That is a real industrial building with presses running all the time, just down the street in the block, and the car wash.
But-
And then what about the nursing, or the assisted living? I don't know what that was considered.
I don't know what that is.
So basically, all that property goes back to when the railroad was going through, and the train station was actually there.
Yeah.
And the granary was on the other side of 32 and the coal.
Yeah.
And so
That was our boundary.
that was,
Mhm.
I mean, you guys have been,
We've been there since '79, so 43 years.
a long
Okay.
time.
Mr. Chairman, I've got another question.
Yes.
Isn't the stair place east of Clinton is actually industrial, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that piece is
All
industrial.
that,
And then,
all that east of.
right, all of that east of Railroad,
East of
right.
Railroad.
And then the building that Bill Miller is in has been a non-conforming building, the same as yours,
Right.
for years, for as long as I can remember. There's been a non-conforming use there.
Mr. Casson, you might not be able to answer this, maybe Mr. Fowler can. Aren't there weight restrictions on the roads in that area that would limit some of the things that can go in there?
I don't have an answer to that, no, sorry.
There are weight.
I think there might be, yeah.
But we signal.
As far as traveling, like a gravel train or something like that, but I mean, if somebody's gotta bring a load in or something, or you're building a new house
Well,
and
there's
cement
still weight.
trucks and,
Yeah,
Well, I
well,
mean,
I don't
it-
think you can bring something like that in there, is what I'm saying, so that would limit what
yeah,
can
for
go
big,
in there.
big, heavy industrial.
I don't know, okay.
Well, I mean, in the way of weight limits, who's going to enforce the weight limit on the road?
The Romeo police?
Yeah, we can't enforce the parking.
Kidding.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's, to me, it sounds more like maybe we should consider that conditional rezoning.
And one more question. You said that they could request a variance.
There are two
Through-
other options.
Okay.
One's a variance,
Mm-hmm.
that's not probably going to help them,
All right, okay.
because you're still conditioned upon that leaving.
All right, okay.
So it just gives them a few years. The other, and I caution, because it has to be requested, the state law is really specific, says planning commission can't request a rezoning based on a condition, but the resident or the applicant can request it. So that would be up to them to say, hey, we'll change our mind. I mean, it'd be easily up to you guys to say, this might be going south, let's come up with another plan.
Any other comments from members?
I just hate to see it sit there someday down the road, as they were saying, and it just falls apart. And then that all the neighbors then, instead of just one group, is really complaining. And it's like, well, we don't have the money and we're not selling it for this and
Well,
whatever.
It's a piece of property with value too, so
Right.
we don't want anybody to lose their value, or their
So
time
it's-
invested, money.
Isn't that up to the property owner too, though? I mean, if my property went to trash, I assume the village would have ways to make me comply and bring it up to whatever standards there are. So the same would have to be held for them on that property as well.
And dealing with,
If it's
I'm
possible.
sorry to mention it, Mr. Chair, dealing with, if it is rezoned to light industrial or industrial, lending institutions have a very difficult problem of doing mortgages with industrial property in the backyard. That's one of the biggest things the biggest hurdles that we had to overcome, and that's why we rezoned the property down in Dickinson, because you couldn't get a mortgage because our property is bordered light industrial property. So mortgage companies, lending institutions have a very tough problem, and your property value comes down, and not taking you guys' value down, but single-family residential properties value comes down, period.
My big problem, I just see the issue both ways, but I see that these buildings have been there for way back when. I mean, as long as I remember.
Yeah.
The train station and
Even back when,
I've seen it. It's always been down there. I mean, there was,
We played over in that area.
yeah, there's, it's been there a long time, and the building has been added onto and expanded and everything else.
Is there hellies around there?
So I understand that conditional zoning would be something that we would request, saying we would like, thus and so to be in there, a print shop or something similar, or something that we don't want big trucks, and we don't want, cement trucks running in and out of there and presses. But again, if the building were sold, we couldn't really stop that person from doing whatever they were doing. Am I correct in assuming that if someone were to buy the building and they were to change the use, don't they have to come to planning commission to do that? Not just rezoning, but if they were just gonna change the use of it? Or is that something different?
You are correct, but the planning commission cannot deny the use that's allowed in the district. If they meet the ordinance or the setbacks, parking. The other thing is on a conditional zoning, the restrictions that you would place on it would be recorded in the county as a covenant on the property, so that would have precedence.
But we would set those
You
boundaries
would,
ourselves.
would request those in the
We
planning
would
commission.
request
Have to
it.
agree with it.
Yeah.
So like looking on the bright side for the village, tax bracket wise, if you were to sell it, what we bought it for way back when, it would have to be re-taxed or as well too. So that'd be a plus. Even if it was industrial, it would be allowed for us.
Any other thoughts? Suggestions, motions?
Is this something that you may want to think through a little longer instead of deciding right now? I mean,
Well, that depends on you. I mean, would you consider a conditional
you want to vote on
rezoning?
it right now?
I'd have to think that through a little bit. I didn't know that was an option, but now that I think I understand how that.
I mean, it's kind of a conundrum for us. We want to accommodate
Sure.
you and other
residents.
residents.
Yeah, and I
you know.
understand residents' concern. I would be saying the same thing, because we don't know what the future holds down the road in 10 years.
But it's also putting a heck of a big, from a market that may be like this down to this, to try to find another sign company or a printer or what have you.
Yeah, right.
We're getting gray, aren't we all?
Well, I think we could broaden it from just a sign company. We just have to make sure that
Well,
it's
I'd like
not
to know
something
all
that's
what
making
could be
a
those.
racket after hours, et cetera. I mean, during the day,
Casino.
I don't make much noise, I can tell you that.
I mean, this doesn't have to take 10 years. It can take a couple of months,
We don't know.
So, any motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second.
That's what I'm thinking. So we have a motion before us to table this
Second.
rezoning tonight and then move forward with, your involvement towards something that accommodates everybody, including you and the residents.
Do you mind, I'm sorry, do you mind if Mr. Cassian chats with him and gives him some?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you mind, Mr. Chair?
And he's up to bat again right after this. so-
No, I meant, not, no, I meant,
Contact the office.
yes,
No,
yes,
yeah.
to communicate. in
They can
the
always
absence,
talk with
because
them.
He has
Right, and
He's listening to both sides. and-
Sure, he's there
Yeah,
in the
with a
office.
good neutral.
Question, is this a
Option.
time-sensitive thing for you, or?
Not extremely.
We didn't table his,
No, it's
I think we
not
appreciate it.
extremely time sensitive, no. These requests have been going on for 3 years. So I bought the business from my brother, we worked all that out. But now we still own the property together. He wants to go his own separate way, and of course I have to find another place to continue my business, because I'm not gonna go out of business, so, that's a concern.
Now, you own the house to the right also?
No, that's been sold many years ago.
Okay, that's separate.
Mr. Casson, you'd like to?
Because of the sensitivity of who asks for conditional zoning, I would rather have the petitioner, if he agrees, to request a tabling so that he could investigate further.
Okay,
Would you do?
Yeah, one motion to table it.
okay.
Lisa, you can make the motion based on the commissioner,
Okay,
petitioner's request.
okay,
I still second.
okay. I would like to make a motion to table based on the petitioner's request.
Okay, we have a motion before us to table this rezoning. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, Cindy. All right, okay. We didn't do anything, but we will. So,
Will we be notified when the next?
it's all, everything's,
Yes,
yes, everything's public, so.
Larry,
yes.
if you,
We did the rezoning review. Okay, unfinished
I'll
business.
keep you informed too.
I got mixed emotions, you know, I feel for them, but
Sure.
then it's been there forever. And if you
Right.
moved in,
Yeah, but
it
that's not
was
their
there.
concern. Their concern is what's going to be done next.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
That's the fright.
All right, so we move on to unfinished business. We have the bylaws update. Mr. Casson is going to say something about that for
I
us.
just, as your request, I took your bylaw drafts and kind of amended them slightly and put them in a proper order, and in front of you is a recommendation for you to adopt your bylaws. If you find that there's something that doesn't meet your needs or you don't like, I have no problem making changes. It was just, I think it pretty much follows what you have to get.
And just to remind everybody, there are bylaws. We can change them as we feel like
Anytime.
we want to change them, so.
If I may, is new business typically go before unfinished business?
That's a good question.
I asked Christine that question, and she said that the way I have it is how she would have it.
You think
That's fine.
you'd remember, but try and wait this out as soon as you get home.
Just curious.
Okay, so does anybody have any comment about our bylaws? Does anybody want
I
to,
think he's done a great job.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
should we,
I think we've been over them quite a few times already, so.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bylaws as presented by Mr. Casson.
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Smiles? We have a motion before us to approve the bylaws as presented to us and amended by Mr. Casson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous again, Cindy. Now we have something I brought up a couple of meetings ago, which is consideration of payment for our members. I think Mr. Casson would like to say something, or could
Yeah.
say something.
I was asked kind of my opinion on whether the planning commission should receive a stipend for that. My response was, I thought you already were. I do not have any communities that I work for, and I've been doing this a long time, that do not receive a stipend. And most of those stipends range anywhere between $50, $55 to one community. Lennox Township pays $120 not per hour, per meeting. Lennox Township pays $120. So I certainly think that it's appropriate that you request from the village council to be compensated for your meeting time.
Commentary, anybody?
Is there a set amount that we'd like to have to recommend to village council?
Averages typically around $75.
I think we can just throw that one out.
75 us.
Put the average?
About the average,
Yeah.
just of my communities, okay?
Hey,
Which are there?
Maybe we could try 500.
So, how do we want to make this motion?
You request the village council to consider compensation for the planning commission.
Yeah, let's to petition the village council to compensate the planning commission for its very good work.
I second your motion.
Okay. Is that all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
But motion for unanimous agreement for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.